record? No, that's great.
Call her out
I
earlier.
don't know. As long as we get it recorded. I've
actually been recording the audio for this.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so echoes of Yeshua's word. This is Yochanan, John 3:17. For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. So why did he come? Is he here to judge us? To save us, not to judge us. Judgment comes later, right?
That's the other time.
So Yohanan 12:47, same thing. If anyone hears my words but does not keep them, I do not judge that person, for I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. Again, the focus is on the now. He wants us to live now, right? Now, does that mean judgment won't come later? No. Okay, we know judgment will come later, right? But his purpose for coming wasn't condemnation and judgment.
So should our purpose be the same? I mean, yes.
So our job is to judge then.
No. I mean, our job isn't to judge because
it's to save.
Yeah,
right?
It's to judge.
Okay.
It's to save. I can't talk.
Yeah, it's okay.
Easy for you to say.
All right.
Yeah.
So think about
You know
this.
what I mean?
Why does he need to say this? Why does Yeshua need to say that to that generation? Because they were judging, right? Okay. Now remember, we spent all of last week talking about this idea that when we judge according to what? Torah, right? Not to the other externals that we are so amazingly good at judging by, right? Male and female, slave and free, Jew and Gentile. We're great. Economics, right? Your dress, your haircut, your race, all of these things, okay? All right. So do you remember when he's talking to Nicodemus, okay? And then later to the crowd at the feast, he's saying as the Messiah, I have not come to judge the world. Will he? Yes, but not now, okay? The first advent, he comes to bring mercy and forgiveness. Their expectation was that he would judge those who they felt were in need of judgment. He says, that's not why I'm here. First of all, you guys are terrible judges, okay? You're just rotten to the core at this thing.
Like, look at the Pharisees.
Bingo. Who's he talking to? The Pharisees, okay? Again, he's talking literally to Nicodemus, okay? Yeah. You've made all these rules. You can't eat with the Gentiles and stuff like. Well, who made that rule? Was that Jesus or God? No. It was just a bunch of Pharisees come up with this, right? Okay. And of course, Peter gets yelled at this. We've talked about that later, right? Okay, 2:13. There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you. The NLT actually does a great job on this one. I have never said that in my life. Okay. So look at the first clause. What does that mean? Can you think of any of Yeshua's words that say the same thing but in a different way? There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others.
Measures.
Yes.
With your weights and your measures, how you measure it, it'll be measured back to you.
Correct. Matthew 7:2. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. So if you measure with grace and mercy will be measured back on you. But if you measure not according to Torah, what measure could he use on you? Anything he wants, right? This is why Torah is such a blessing. I know what the answer is ahead of time, right? I know I will survive the trial. Right? It is so, again, 5 commandments for keeping Sabbath. Pharisees had 6,000. So much more simpler. Yeshua just says, my yoke is light, easy, right? It's not hard. 5 things, and 2 of them basically happen in your head. Remember Sabbath and observe Sabbath. I mean, please, right? So we're kind of down to 3 at this point, right? Like, lay in your bed, remember the correct day, don't pick up sticks, don't light fires, and don't buy and sell. It's not the end of the world. Oh, but you can't keep Sabbath. Who said? You ever met anybody who tried? No. Yeah, I have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but their answer will be no, right? Because they've been told. So why look for it? Why look for the Gulf of Aqaba if you know it doesn't exist, right? No one can keep Sabbath. That's what Pastor said. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. That's what the paradigm is, right? And we don't, and neither did the Royal Geography Society when they took away Beke's gold medal and called him a heretic. And we're doing the same things today. Yeah. Should have invested in Bitcoin. Okay, so mercy. In the Greek, the word is anilios, Anileos, anilios. And I'm probably butchering that in Greek, but it's the best I got. So in the Septuagint, that is the translation of the Hebrew word chesed. Chesed. Or kind of to us, it would look more like cheesed. But it's your favorite letter.
It is.
Say it for me. Come on. Chesed, right?
I got something in my throat.
Yes. It's the language of spitting and coughing. Good. Okay, so Hesed.
And it looks like this.
Yeah, and it looks like a door frame, right? Good. Okay. Psalm 145:8. Yehovah is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love, mercy, loving kindness, right? But understand that word that we just used, like 4 of them there to describe that, right? That word isn't gracious and merciful. And it's not love, agape, okay? It's chesed. So this is a new concept to the typical New Testament believer. We get love. We know all about agape love, okay? We know about grace, okay? And we know about mercy, but no one talks about chesed, okay? So chesed, we kind of the more modern versions will use loving kindness, okay? Loving kindness. So we had to, in English, make up a word, because we don't have a word for this, okay? An equivalent, word. And it still doesn't grasp the actual intent, okay? So when I was at university in the second year, Dr. Falk was requiring me to translate this as loyal acts. He wouldn't let me use anything. I don't know if he did this with everybody else, but he says, you will translate this as loyal acts. Okay. Scratch it out, right? Loyal acts every time now, right? So his point was that it only occurs, chesed, only occurs in covenantal relationships. Okay? So I cannot show chesed to a pagan, and a pagan can't show chesed to me, because we're not in covenant with one another. Okay? Now, could a pagan show me mercy? Yes. Could a pagan show me grace? Yes. Could a pagan show me love? Yes. Can a pagan show me chesed? No, because we are not in covenant with one another. Okay? So that was Falk's kind of, is like, so because of the covenant, you show a loyal deed or a loyal kindness to that person. Example, Bill gets up early in the morning and he makes Jenny coffee. That would be an act of loyal kindness. So because of your relationship together, he shows this act of kindness to his spouse, right? Now, do you have a ketubah that says you have to make coffee every day?
Nope.
No. Okay, wasn't in the marital agreement. Okay. Maybe on the way out of the house, you write your spouse a note and put it on their windshield so when they leave for work, they find the little note. That's an act of loyal kindness. Okay. Wasn't required, right? But it's just something that you do for the other person that you're in covenant with. So Skip on Hesed. Skip says it has 4 characteristics. The first one is reciprocity. So if your spouse were to demonstrate an act of loyal kindness to you, okay, Bill makes coffee, what is the likelihood of Jenny showing an act of loyal kindness to Bill?
Then wait and then wait.
I'm glad you waited until I swallowed. Oh my word.
Well, now you're gonna have to keep waiting.
You're gonna be waiting a long time now, yeah.
Yeah, pretty sure that just looked by the way.
Get something to eat with this coffee.
Yeah.
Okay.
You do the coffee and she does
But-
breakfast.
Get something.
But was that written in your ketubah that you had to make the breakfast?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. Bill didn't have to write it down.
So
She doesn't do it.
this continues to grow within that covenant relationship, that one person does something nice and the other person does, and it's not, you're not trying to top the other person. It's just you love that other person, you're in a relationship with you, and so you do these acts of kindness for the other person, right? It's reciprocal, okay? Or we would call it a two-way street, right? Not a one-way street. Okay, number 2, Skip uses the word transitivity here. That you are obligated to show favor to the one who has shown it to you, but obligated to pass it on to someone else as well. So you pay it forward. Okay, so because of that act of kindness going on, it develops this attitude in you to pay those acts of kindness forward to others. So if someone does something nice for me, and so I do something nice for someone else, right? So you would think of this probably more like at a congregational level with friends and maybe extended family then. It's people that you're in covenant with, but because of everybody operating in this way, it just grows and it begins getting paid forward to other people, okay? Number 3, it's always relational. It's established relationship between us in covenant, and I cannot show hesed to a stranger. I can only show grace to the stranger, okay? So how does Yah establish that? He pours his grace out on everyone. So this is really fascinating. The prophet Joel, do you remember it says the prophet Joel is fulfilled with that? I pour out my spirit on all flesh, okay? Again, no distinctions, no partiality. That's what we talked about last week. So when God pours out his spirit, he poured out his spirit on all flesh. This is the struggle of Peter and Paul at the beginning of the whole Council of Jerusalem, is they come to the Council of Jerusalem and it's like, wait a second, they got the Spirit. How did that happen? That's not supposed to happen in our world. Only the Jews get the Spirit. But now we got all these Gentiles running around saying they accepted Messiah, and they're filled with the Spirit. That doesn't add up in our paradigm. Our paradigm is this little box over here. We made all those rules to make that box. And now it doesn't, our box doesn't work anymore. Okay? So Yah pours his favor out on you. You were not looking for it, didn't ask for it, and maybe didn't even want it. So,
No, we didn't.
did you find God or did God find you? God found us. We were not looking for God. We have to be honest with that, okay? We were off having our own life with our own little puny gods, as the Hulk would say. So how does someone who receives Yah's grace enter into a Hesed relationship with him? So understand, we received grace. We did not receive Hesed from him at the beginning. We received grace, okay? The moment you accept the grace, forgiveness happens. You have entered into a covenant relationship with him, and now you have an obligation. Oh, but I thought it was free.
You still have an obligation.
Step number 4, it's always active. Chesed is always active. It's an action, and you must do something. There must be a response. So if we go back to Yaakov 2:13 and we read the verse in terms of chesed instead of mercy, which is the usual translation of the word,
So how do you spell?
the usual way. C-H-E.
No, what's the Hebrew?
Oh,
Chet,
Sin or some?
yes, it's
Samek
I think.
And
yeah.
Dalet.
and Dalet.
Dalet.
And English
Sonic.
transliteration will be CH.
Yes.
E-S-E-D. So it kind of looks like cheesed.
Cheese.
Yeah, you've been cheesed.
Cheese.
Unless you double the S and then it would be chest.
Is that why they always say cheese?
Yeah, Hesed. Okay. So there will be, chapter 2, verse 13 in Yaakov. There will be no chesed for those who have not shown chesed to others. But if you have been full of chesed, God will be full of chesed when he judges you.
Is there a Hebrew version of James?
I don't know. I haven't found it yet.
Well, we were talking about James, we were talking about one of the others. Yeah, because I before Gospels and
Acts and Revelation we have.
sure, and then Jude.
Maybe.
I think I heard they had Jude too.
It wouldn't surprise me. I just haven't
Hebrews-
seen it.
Hebrews is definitely.
I just haven't seen it yet.
I bet you. I bet it was.
But again, so all we have to do though is we can go to the Septuagint and we look up what this word is, and then you go to the Old Testament and you look up that word, and then you compare it to the Hebrew, and we go, oh, it's Hesed, right? Okay. So it's not actually talking about compassion and mercy. The verse is talking about this concept called chesed. Okay? So, is it about my feelings of sympathy and compassion towards someone? No. It's about your actions
Within the body,
within the body. Yeah.
because you show people on the outside of the body different,
You're just giving them grace.
right?
Mhm.
Well, and when you read verse 14, what good is it dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but don't show it by your actions, what kind of faith can save anyone?
Yes, we're gonna rip this apart. It's great. So what about the person who does nothing, doesn't care about you at all, is never there for you, just takes what they can get? Yaakov is saying that that person won't experience chesed.
But you can be merciful.
Hmm?
But you can still be merciful.
You can. Yeah, it's not denying that. Absolutely. This is, again, James is a rabbi. He's using rabbinical principles to answer questions in this text. So you have to rip it apart like a lawyer does. Every word has value, and sometimes just because he says one thing, it doesn't mean he's not saying something else, right? You have to parse it out very carefully. So 2:14. Clearly, Brian was reading my notes here. So, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? So this is the big daddy verse of all verses in James, okay? So up all through chapter 1, up to this point, what's the topic that we've been talking about? What was the whole point of chapter 1?
How you treat others in the body, right?
Well, he's definitely talking about so he's writing this letter to synagogues that have believers in them, and they're getting overwhelmed by Gentiles that are doing the wrong stuff. Okay, but they're claiming that they're believers, but they have they have a different cultural background, right? They were raised as pagans. Okay, so he's saying, okay, you might have figured out, again, in the pagan world, to show mercy wasn't a good thing.
No.
To show grace wasn't necessarily a good thing, okay? But they definitely do not understand chesed. They have no concept of hesed.
They don't even have a word.
They don't have a word for it. Yes, good point. Okay, so the idea of reciprocity, of covenantal loyal deeds, the idea of paying it forward to someone else without asking anything for it. This doesn't exist in their culture. So if I go to Uganda,
When I go to Uganda.
if I were to take my bottle of rum,
It's not gonna
which I
last.
would never do,
It's not
because
gonna last that long.
I'll never get it through customs.
Yeah.
But if I were to leave my bottle of rum sitting on a table and then I walk away, what's going to
Bye-bye.
happen?
It's gonna disappear.
You're never gonna see it again.
Why?
Because it's a cultural advantage to outdo the other guy. And if they can take it from you, that increases their status and it decreases your status whether you know it or not.
Because
Absolutely.
you left it. Depends on whose table you leave it on.
What-
You left it, so I'm presuming it was mine now.
So finders,
left it-
keepers, losers,
Yeah,
weepers,
yeah.
right?
You left it on the table. You just forgot to say, "Oh, Pam, keep this for me.
If I don't
meant,
take
Pam, this
it-
is yours."
Someone else will.
Yeah.
Because everybody takes things that are left. So why shouldn't I?
There you go.
That's the paradigm.
There you go.
See, I know if I left this here, it would be here when I got back the next time.
It's just empty.
I doubt it. Maybe just a sip gun. And I would be okay with that, by the way. Okay, so Yaakov's argument is, what good does it do? What good does it do you if your whole life is about taking? So I steal this, and I'm thinking, I got something now. But the reality is, your soul is dying on the inside. You're killing yourself every time you do that. A little piece of you is dying inside. Okay?
Great. Now he's going to test us and leave it just to see if we drink it while he's gone.
Just pull out a big stack of money and just sit it there and see what happens.
I would just empty it into another bottle.
Pour water in it.
Water there, see if he notices. Then he give his chin back. later.
Yeah.
So the person whose life is all about taking is going to find out that it will be taken from him. What profit is there to you if all you do is take? But
Yeah.
that's the culture they live in. Their culture is a taking culture. If I don't get it, so it's this idea of what's the word they use this in economics? It's a pie, zero sum pie, right? Zero sum game. Okay, there's only so much pie in the world, and if I don't take it, someone else is going to get it,
And I won't get any.
and then I get none. So that doesn't serve me. So it's better if I take it. Okay, that's their world.
Even though it's actually true.
But that is not a biblical world. Yeah,
It's not even real.
it's not a healthy world. So that can't save you. If your faith is to take, then it doesn't work. It requires loyalty, faithfulness, obligation, reciprocity, and paying it forward. To Yaakov, faith is action, or showing all this stuff in your life. It's demonstrating, showing all this stuff in your life. In the church, modern church today, they are quick to say, just give us the money, and by faith, you receive the reward. You know, if you give to this, then you're going to get to, because you're part of the team. So I'll go to Uganda, you'll get the blessing. It's a very common teaching in church today. Giving is great, but Yaakov might take a bit of a different view on that, okay? I'm thinking this should be a different word, with, which. Okay, so Yeshua has a parable about this. It says, then Peter came and said to him, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Until 7 times? Yeshua said to him, I don't tell you until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who wanted to reconcile accounts with his servants. When he had begun to reconcile, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. But because he couldn't pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold with his wife and his children and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and knelt before him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will repay you all. The Lord of the servant, being moved with compassion, released him and forgave him the debt. But that servant went out and found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and he grabbed him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me what you owe me. So his fellow servant fell down at his feet and begged him, saying, have patience with me, and I will repay you. He would not, but went and cast him into the prison until he should pay back that which was due. So when his fellow servants saw what was done, they were exceedingly sorry, and came and told to their Lord all that was done. Then his Lord called him in and said to him, you wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Shouldn't you also have had mercy on your fellow servant, even as I have had mercy on you? His Lord was angry and delivered him to the tormentors until he should pay all that was due to him. So my heavenly Father will also do to you if you don't each forgive your brother from your hearts for his misdeeds. So we have one person using a standard to judge the other person by. How did the king find out?
Other people told him.
Tattletales.
Other people told him, right? Okay. So realize that this was all observable behavior by other members in the community. Other people saw him do this. It was his actions. It wasn't a feeling in his heart. He actually did it, right? And the deed was reported back to the king. And the king's response, he withdraws the forgiveness. He had granted him forgiveness, and he withdraws the forgiveness. Once saved, always saved, right?
Yeah, good luck.
That's not what the parable teaches. That's just plumb scary. You did not show that you are worthy of the forgiveness of him. So in other words, your actions didn't show the forgiveness. I advanced you forgiveness on the basis of how you were going to act in the future. Think about that. The king extends forgiveness on the basis of his future actions.
Paying it forward.
It's paying it forward, right? Okay. Rereading my notes again. Turn this way. Okay. So think about this. Forgiveness is not something I own. Today, we treat it like it's something we own. I got forgiveness.
I've been forgiven.
You got a
And
gift and
then
now it's yours.
You have a gift, and now it's yours.
and it can never be taken.
And the assumption is it can never be taken, right? Okay. All right. So keep in mind that forgiveness itself is an economic term. So we talked today about forgiving debt, right? Okay. So it's like going to a bank. Forgiveness is like going to a bank and getting a loan. It's not your money. It's the bank's money. You're only using the money. And this bank says, I'm recalling the loan, and you owe me all the interest on top of it. Doesn't it talk about, I didn't look this up, this just slipped into my head. There's a verse that talks about the master can be a harsh master, and he reaps what he doesn't sow.
He picks up what he didn't lay down.
Yeah, kind of fascinating, right? Puts a new spin on it. Okay, so are we worthy of forgiveness? No, all fall short of the glory of God. He gives us forgiveness. It's a gift, right? He gives it to us with the expectation of future behavior. If there's no expectation of future behavior, why would you give the gift? Right? So you go, okay, I'm trying to think of an example. You wouldn't, so I know this guy, and he's killed 5 people with a knife. Do I give him a knife for his birthday gift? Well, no, that would be ridiculous.
And a list.
Okay, yeah, and a list. Yeah.
Depends on how you deliver.
Huh?
Depends on how you deliver.
Yeah.
List.
Okay. Yeah, if maybe if I'm seeking justice, I might, yeah. Okay, so if you know that the person isn't going to respond to it, you wouldn't give that gift, right? So David, Melech David, blew it several times in Torah, true?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So did David ever pay any consequences for that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
You bet, right? Okay. So we treat forgiveness like it's a stamp on a passport and I own it. So God went, shh, and now I get my passport with my forgiveness stamp. See, I'm forgiven. And I carry that passport and it's mine now. And you can't take it away.
Except if you-
Yeah, except they can. You can have your passport revoked. Right? So that idea of ownership, that forgiveness is a possession that I can own now, is ludicrous. If I don't show forgiveness to others, I prove that I am unworthy of the loan that God gave me. Do you remember our master's prayer, what he says in the prayer about forgiveness? Forgive us our debts. He's using an economic term. We have another example in the gospel that uses sins, but it's the same thing, okay? But it works as an economic term. Forgive us our debts as we forgive others, right?
Indirect.
Yeah. Yeah, measure for measure, right? Okay. There, I didn't know about this when I started this habit years ago. Um, it was just prior to kind of going down this road. Uh, typically, not perfect at this. Typically, when I wake up in the morning, I roll over and I slither out of bed so that the first thing that hits the ground are my knees, and then I pray.
You slither.
I literally, I
Run
like
to the
just
bathroom.
like
Yeah.
right out of bed, right?
I pray I get there in time.
And my knees hit the floor, and my prayer is,
Probably not bad
thank you for
things.
putting breath in my lungs and a spark in my heart, because I know at any point you could cancel both. And so this day is a gift for me, right? Except in Judaism, they have a prayer they do on waking also. It's very, very similar, right? Because Yah has given me one more extension on my loan to keep showing chesed. He just, every day, he keeps extending my loan. I'm going to, you paid your bill yesterday, keep paying it today, life's going to be great, right? So if he determines in the middle of the night that I'm not worthy anymore, I wouldn't wake up.
Bye-bye.
Loan's canceled at this point, right? All right, Colossians 1:9-11. Gives us a little different perspective on what Paul says. For this reason, verse 9, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying for you and asking God to fill you with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so that you walk in a manner worthy of the Lord and may please him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, so that you may have full endurance and patience. It's exactly what James is talking about. Oh, and he says, and joyfully, right? James is big into joy in chapter 1, right? Count it all joy. Not some, not a little bit, all joy. So we don't get to carry around our little pocket card that says, I'm worthy, right? I prove how worthy I am by the way I walk.
That's the thing the church has on.
Because the Reformation started us with this theme of sola fide, only faith. Because they were fighting the Catholic Church and the traditions of the indulgences and all these things. And they Luther looked at that and the other reformers, and they said, this is from the pit of hell. We have to get rid of these traditions of men. We need to get back to the commandments of God. This is what Matthew teaches us in chapter 15. So we got to get rid of these traditions. So we're going to go to a faith-only position, not faith and tradition, which is what the Catholic Church taught. Popery, all of this stuff, right? Yeah, okay. So they went to a faith-only, sola fide. And that has now been interpreted as no works. You can't do anything to receive faith. So we have then stripped the church of every ritual except tithing and baptism. They can't get rid of baptism, and they need tithing. Okay? Again, keep in mind, Yaakov is writing to synagogues, right? Look at your behavior and keep it in mind. I stated this at the beginning of the book. Yaakov applies this to himself also. He's living this way. He's living in a covenantal relationship with God, paying chesed forward, right? But he wouldn't need to talk about it unless there was a problem.
Yeah.
And so because the synagogues are getting overwhelmed with the goyim, Gentiles, they're bringing in this other worldview, and it's starting to dominate those synagogues. And so James is pushing back, and he's like, you guys are missing this whole chesed conversation. But to James, a Hebrew, chesed was a totally normal conversation, totally normal part of life. It was the Gentiles that are missing it, okay? How do we see this play out in the book of Acts? In chapter 2, remember how it talks about them giving to one another as was needed, right? It wasn't a governmental program of socialism, okay? He wasn't teaching communism. And there's whole church groups that teach that this is communism and socialism, and Jesus teaches this. No, it was chesed.
It was free will.
It was their own will. It wasn't a government program. It was them, I love you and you need this, and so here, I got an extra here, do it. That's just what community does, right? So all this discussion about partiality has been leading up to this concept of Hesed. So they're having a problem with partiality. Jew and Gentile, male and female, slave and free, and multiple cultures going on. And all of this is creating these problems amongst the synagogues, amongst the believers. And he says the answer is Hesed. You guys are missing Hesed. Don't let all of that bias and prejudice get in the way of this concept. You must master Hesed. All right, 2:14. Get the right bottle here. Hate to get the wrong one there. Should be an interesting message by the end. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? So understand, can that faith save him is a rhetorical question. He knows the answer. What is it? No, that kind of faith can't save you, right? Okay.
It's just head knowledge. That's no good at all.
Mhm.
You've got to put action to it, otherwise it's worthless.
Correct.
So is this verse in, because he's talking about how we treat others in our community? I've seen that verse taken to mean other things, but it's not. The context.
2:14.
Of this verse, yeah.
Okay, so
the
what
context of
good
this-
is it? What's next? What good is it?
My brothers.
My brothers.
Right.
He's talking to other Messianic believers
Right.
in synagogue in a community relationship.
But the works he's talking about
Ah,
are on how to treat others, not just any works.
okay, so I've always taken that to mean Torah, keep the commandments.
I think he's talking about.
He's talking about Hesed. Absolutely. He's completely talking about Hesed. Hesed are actions. They're things that you do one for another.
What was the word your teacher told you to use?
Acts of loyal kindness.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
You bet.
So,
Absolutely. It's very clear now to me that this is Chesed, not just. Now, does that mean you shouldn't keep the commandments? No, that's not that's not the discussion he's having. Okay. So he's talking to a bunch of believers who are already Torah observant in a congregation in a synagogue. They already know they're supposed to be keeping Torah, but they're doing it poorly.
Well, they're missing the aspect.
And they're missing key aspects of
of
it.
loving your neighbor. It's
Yes.
a key aspect of loving your neighbor.
Absolutely. So the church rallies today around this idea that all you need is faith. Okay? And that was the battle cry of the Reformation.
It's almost true.
And it's almost true.
Almost true.
Like in Hebrews when it says almost every sacrifice requires blood. Doesn't say every, right? So, and it's why, and this is why Luther disliked the book of Yaakov so much. Because their worldview, their paradigm was very specifically only faith. So to tell me I have to do something, that breaks my paradigm. I can't agree with that then. The question is, are you willing to give up your paradigm? And clearly, the Royal Geographic Society was not willing to give up their paradigm, right? And now, 100 years later, 150 years later, they're idiots. And now we're making whole movies about telling everybody that they were idiots, because we have Mount Sinai now, and guess where it is? In Arabia. So they tell this story, and you just go, oh my gosh, these guys were idiots. What were they thinking, right? All right, so let's understand Yaakov's argument and definitions here. So this person claims that he has faith by being in the community, understanding who God is, and some sort of relationship with him. From Yaakov's position, if Hesed is not part of that, then we're not meeting the standard he wants us to uphold.
You're just a sounding gong.
Yes, correct. You're saying one thing and doing something else, right? You claim faith because God did something. Completely wrong. Yaakov claims faith is the response to what Yah did. So what we have three terms we're working through today. We had grace, mercy, and chesed. Okay? Which did God do? Which did he demonstrate to us? Grace. By faith, through grace, right? God gives us grace. The response we show back is chesed. Okay? So God's action is not what saves you. What saves you is embracing Hesed and demonstrating it in your life and beginning the process of paying it forward. No one ever taught me that in the church. Look at 2:14b, second half. Can faith save you? You already told me the answer was no, right? So what's the other portion that you have to have? Hesed. That's the second side of the coin, right? Two-way street. Grace is given. Chesed is the response. And it's rhetorical. He already knows ahead of time. You can't have just faith. You've got to have works. And the works are acts of Hesed, loyal kindness. But today, if I said, can faith save you? What would everybody in the church say? Yes, absolutely. Okay. Your response to Yah's grace is what saves you. Works as a result of faith. You're going to say?
Well, it's just like a good error. It has a whole bunch of truth in it.
Correct. Yeah. There was a little meme that I posted last week or 2 weeks ago, and it said, discernment isn't knowing right from wrong. Discernment is knowing right from almost right.
I remember that.
Okay? It's those shades of things. Okay? Because all lies have a little bit of truth in them. Otherwise, you just discount it. Okay?
Yeah, that's
All right. So, in completely rabbinical style now, Yaakov gives us a practical example. Okay? Verse 15 to 17. Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm, and be well fed, but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? Right? This again, it's supposed to be a very practical example. So here you are, you're walking down the street. This guy's on the side of the road. He's shivering like crazy. You know, it's nighttime and he's just sitting there shivering. And you're like, be blessed, man. I'm praying for you. James would say, you're an idiot. Give him a coat. Go buy him a blanket. Do something. Do anything for the guy, right? But don't just say, oh man, I'm praying for you. God, I'm believing for God for you. Go do something. That would have a lot of value to him, right? So he is using the statement to illustrate that, can faith save you? Is the hungry or naked person saved from their dilemma? Not at all. Their dilemma hasn't changed, except this guy walked by and he was talking about blessings from God. Why would I believe in his God? It didn't save me. It didn't do anything for me. Didn't help me a bit, right? So you can see that salvation to them is a very practical thing. It's not an eternal thing. We're just trying to keep the guy alive by giving him a blanket, right? That doesn't deny that there's an eternal component to it, okay? Just having the idea I should be compassionate does nothing for them. They are not clothed or fed simply because you noticed their need. My faith saved me? His point is that faith alone is not sufficient. All right, Hebrew is action-oriented. So why would Yaakov have to mention this when writing to these synagogues who know and recite the Shema, hear and do, right, 3 times a day? 3 times a day, these guys are all praying. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Love, they're going through this 3 times a day.
There's a disconnect.
Complete disconnect, right? Because in this period of time, the Jews had been Hellenized. They had been Greeked, right? They thought Greek now. Simply, they weren't doing it. And Yaakov, his role as the bishop of Jerusalem is to teach them how to live a proper Hebraic biblical lifestyle. And remember, he came to them as a servant. It says, I, Yaakov, a bondservant of Yeshua Messiah. And he comes with humility because he's got some really difficult things to tell them. If I went and gave this to the average church, how would it be received? Probably.
They would not get the nuance.
Definitely not. Yeah.
They wouldn't even let you in with it because who are you? Yeah, who are you to give the church something?
Sure.
Well, and then you're going against it.
Yeah.
They're not
Absolutely.
ready to receive it with paradigm.
Yeah, there's more. Yeah, you
So-
don't even get through the
So
front door.
for us as a movement, okay, for us as a movement to make progress, how do we need to approach those conversations? With humility, right? And that is not how we've done it in the past. What we've approached everybody as, we're smarter than you. I know the language. You're an idiot. You've got it wrong. It's all Luther's fault. Shut up and listen to me. And it didn't work. It made everybody mad, right? So instead, I think if we approach it with humility, maybe this would help the cause a
Not
bit,
even
right?
showing them
Sure,
by your actions.
sure, yeah.
you know.
And again, let them ask the question then, right? Why do you do these things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you don't
mean,
have to.
we tend to beat people over the head with the Torah instead of letting them figure it out for themselves.
And we joked about it, we're the Torah police, the Torah Nazis, all these things, right? Okay. So in the pagan world, today I get as much as I can because tomorrow I won't be able to get any, right? It's that pie, okay? If I put something, we already did that. We did that one. So where you have a culture that does not have kind of a Judeo-Christian underpinning, you have ethical concerns. You have no ethical concerns for others. It's all about you. The Europeans came there and placed their values. So like in Uganda or other African nations, things like all around the world. The Europeans show up and they place their values over a culture that has this pagan underpinning roots to it, right? And what happens is you see that these tribal pagan origins work their way back through because they never really got rid of them, because they never succumbed to a true biblical community. Now, when the founders came to the States, when the Pilgrims showed up, keep in mind, they had made a covenant together, right? It was called the Mayflower Compact, right? They had covenanted together to live according to God's standards. And that set an underpinning for the whole country then because of that. So the very roots of our country were based on biblical principles. No other country on the planet got that. And then we try, we go to Iraq and we fight a war, and then we say, oh, we're going to make them into democracy. And they can't figure out how to become a democracy. Why? Different underpinnings.
Or they don't want to. We change them and then they
Yeah,
we leave and then they
what
go
we're
back
doing is
to-
we're trying to,
they
what
go
do you
back
call
to
that?
where it was.
Superimpose.
On a tires on a car.
Retread.
Retreaded tires. That's all we're making.
Trying to colonize them,
Yeah, Yeah.
turn them into something that they are.
correct. Because we're not dealing with the actual community.
With the
And-
culture, you're trying to change your entire culture. That's not gonna happen.
Correct. Okay. All right, next one. So same thing. If I were to look at like South Africa, South Africa from a European perspective seems like a nation. They're one, right? But if you go to South Africa, they don't talk about South Africa as one. They talk about the Maasai and the Zulus, and it's all tribes, okay? They still see themselves as tribes. That's never been changed. But from the outside, we all go, oh, it's South Africa. It's a nation. Now, we kind of had like, states, but we've kind of overcome the states thing.
Yeah,
we're-
thanks to Roosevelt.
We're united,
Roosevelt.
right?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy.
He used the word America in 1 week more than any other president had ever used it, and kind of formed this because he wanted to be a superpower. So he took the collection of states and made it into something else.
And again, originally the colonies themselves were very different, right? And there were a lot of arguments and stuff. So the Gentiles in Yaakov's day have come from a world where the gods will punish them, and they have no idea how to live their lives. They take care of themselves today because tomorrow God will be unhappy with me and punish me again. That's what they're bringing to the synagogue, okay? Rome, consider this, Rome was not intolerant of Judaism. Rome was intolerant of Judaism's claim to be exclusive. Rome had lots of gods. They had lots of other religions.
So one more one.
Okay? One more isn't going to hurt them.
Yeah.
But when that one more is saying, you all need to change, well, that gets a little upsetting. Okay? So they were very syncretic. They were open to, whatever, right?
They didn't like their attitude.
Rome would have been ecstatic without the claim to exclusivity. And they acted that way with every other religion. They were ecstatic about these other religions. Judaism said there's only one El, and Yehovah is his name, and everybody else is wrong. Okay?
That's arrogant.
They saw that as an arrogant thing. No different than how people would look at it today here in the States. Okay?
I've been having this ongoing discussion with my uncle about what we do. and he watched a couple. I had him watch a couple of Pastor Gary things, and he said, I can't argue with what he says, but it's arrogant.
Interesting. So again, so that also goes back to my other point is from their perspective, they have to see us as coming at this from a position of humility, right?
Yeah.
And and I'm sure the guy's probably not arrogant, right?
Because
But I'm again, I've never met the guy
If you're
personally. I
on
don't
the
know him personally or
outside
something.
Looking in, you're going to take offense to pretty much anything that makes you feel less than.
In any group,
Yeah,
So-
right?
exactly.
and what I
Yeah.
said to him is that people talk to me and they ask a question and I rattle off some technical answer because I know all this stuff because of my background, and people think I'm arrogant. They say to me that I'm arrogant,
Right.
or they say to other people that I'm arrogant. It's not that I'm arrogant; it's just that I do actually know what I'm talking
You're
about.
confident.
I'm confident.
Yeah.
I actually know what I'm talking about. And when people, that's the dilemma, because it is the truth. What we believe is the truth. It's not maybe the truth, it's not kind of the truth. It's not almost the truth. It is the truth. Now, the details, we got our details wrong, just like everybody in the world. That's fine.
Mhm.
But that's a kind of a dilemma, because how do you get past that when people say, "Well, you're being arrogant"? Well, you're being wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
and of course that starts to be arrogant. There's that weird thing.
But I'm kind of in the camp where, so you're right, and they think they're right, and by taking that stance, you repel people. I mean,
I know.
not you personally, but
I know.
one repels people, and then you're worse off than you were before,
Yeah.
really,
But
because now
for me,
they
it's just,
totally
yeah,
like,
giving them
oh
more
no,
knowledge.
you
Yeah.
know.
But
It's
how
just
do you
giving
get
them-
past that? See,
Sometimes maybe you
because
just
if you tell them the truth, then you're being arrogant.
Well, sometimes
They don't
you
want
get,
to hear the truth.
sometimes you just get past it by asking them questions.
Right.
Instead of saying, well, making the statement,
Right.
ask them a question. Because then it's less, I'm learning this the hard way, but anyway, it's less which people are offended by, because you can't be that right, you
Right.
know, and it really comes across. I see it. You can just see it in a lot of people in a lot of different situations.
Well,
But the I've seen also the humbler way to do it is, well, I might not be right, but when I look at it from my perspective, or what do
Yeah,
you
just
think
answer the
about this? How
question.
do you see this? And wouldn't it also be a good way to see it from, or have you seen it from, or thought about it in? And
well, and what part of the interesting thing with my uncle in particular was, I can't argue with what he said, because it was the grace versus works sermon that I pointed to you,
Mhm.
and because it just lays it out, and it's scripture after scripture, Old Testament, New, Psalms, the prophets, the Gospels, the Paul's letters and Revelation. He just goes. He doesn't necessarily see it. He goes Old, Middle Old, New, Paul, Revelation, and he does it every time with every discussion he has. And it's hard to argue with that because it's so very clearly true, and yet the response was, well, I can't argue with what he said, but it's arrogant. Well, that means that you're stuck with that thought rather than paying attention to what's being said. It's an excuse to not believe.
Mhm.
Or
Maybe you
God
could
hasn't called it that.
ask your uncle,
Yeah.
why do you consider it arrogant?
Right. Well, because he talks about his attitude, and I said, well, I thought don't see that. I don't see his.
So no, that's really fascinating. So it's the view from where you're sitting
Yes.
that makes you not see it. So it's very possible 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you would have looked at that and seen the same thing your uncle's seeing, right? Okay. But your position has changed. And so you don't see that arrogance anymore. Okay. He's still seeing the arrogance. So
Well,
it-
and
But you're
I think arrogance is a term to describe confidence in what you believe.
Well, you're a very logical person. And logic sways you. Not everyone's swayed by logic.
Well-
They're swayed by maybe how it speaks to them. And this
My
isn't
uncle is
speaking to your
as
uncle.
much logical as I.
I think your question, how do you get past that, is the wrong question. Because I don't think it's, at that point, I don't think it's up to you to get him past anything.
No.
right.
He's
Yeah.
heard the argument. He needs to
Yeah,
stew
now
on it
yes.
for a while, and then let stuff resonate. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you know.
Yeah, let him
Yeah,
alone.
you
let
just
him
an-
stay
add-
there a while.
Well, of
Answer
course,
his
and I
question,
do
and
that
then
'cause we have these
he has to
conversations
figure
where
it out. Yeah.
I mean, he's my probably my best friend as
Mhm.
as people I talk to and do things with.
Mhm.
He's my uncle, but he's only 4 years older.
So the thing, as I've been running into this last few years and trying to understand all of this, the position I've taken is, first of all, the idea of winning people to this,
Right.
it doesn't exist in me anymore. Okay. But so I've taken the position of that the teacher becomes neutral. Okay. So I love bringing up that it's not a rooster. There was no rooster in Peter's scenario with Yeshua, right? And I run into so many people, talking about this, and no one's ever heard that it wasn't a rooster, right?
Yeah,
And-
but rooster's not doctrine.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But see, when I started with this, the very first thing I ever got, I think, was a Michael Rood thing from my mother-in-law, right? And I watched it, and what I liked about it is that I went through all of the scripture that he quoted in this show, right? And I looked it up, and every scripture actually said what he said, and it meant what he said. But I would read Christian books and theology books and stuff, and they'd have 14 references after some comment. I go look up all references. I'm the kind of guy that goes and reads bibliographies and stuff, right? And or bibliographies, yeah. And so I would get to about the third or fourth reference, and they never had anything to do with what the guy's talking about. Only in his head did those other 6 references have anything to do with what the guy was actually talking about, right? Okay. And I went, wow, this guy's actually more honest than most preachers. And that kind of something in it grabbed me, right? So what I'm constantly looking for is, what are Hebraic truths that I can just drop into people's lives, blow their brain apart for just a second, okay, and then step back out and let healing take place. And I've left them so rather than give them the Hebraic view, I want to surround them with so many Hebraic facts and they don't even know I'm doing it, right?
I think that's the key right there.
I think
It's insidious, right?
And I've been doing that with him for 2 years now,
Yeah.
or more. It is interesting when Gary did actually talked about Matthew 5:17. He said, and I hadn't really thought of this, although I quoted it to people all the time because of Tom. Do not think. Wait a second. Does your theology disagree with do not think following thing? Do not think. Do not think. I mean, it really is. It's kind of funny because we read it and we don't think about what those words
Mhm.
mean.
Mhm.
That means don't even go there. Stop, back up, don't.
Yeah.
What part of no is unclear to you?
And so this is so this word hesed, right? So again, to simply say, do you know that in English we don't have a word for this word in Hebrew? I've been studying this word and discovered it just doesn't exist in our language. We've actually had to make up a word to express a concept that Paul's talking about. In fact, they're called hapax legomons. They're words that Paul had to make up all throughout the New Testament that had never been used. They don't exist anywhere else in the Greek language. Paul made the words up. You go, did you know Paul made up words that never existed? Really? Yeah, he's quite the scholar. A tremendous Hebrew scholar. So now their value of Paul goes up because he's got some, mad linguistic skills and stuff like this, right? He's making up all these words and stuff to express what Yeshua was doing. And then again, just let them ponder on it for several months, and then you come back around and you go, do you remember that conversation we were talking about? I learned a new word, and it's this word hesed. It's really cool. You want to hear about it? Oh yeah, tell me about it. Right. And so again, you're making them thirsty for more, but we've tried this winning thing so much because we were trained to win. And the end result is we all lost relationships. We wanted to win instead of have the relationship. And it's the relationship where it was the most important thing. Just crazy. Anyway,
Right.
We got to move on. So, good discussion. So, let's see. So, especially in Hellenism, remember that in the Greek culture, man is the measure of all things. It was all about the individual. It had nothing to do with communities. We don't care about communities. We don't care about cities. We only care about man. And if you can control that one thing, the rest will take care of itself. Okay? So when you walk into a synagogue and all of a sudden they're trying to teach you to love your neighbor and to be involved in the community, come to morning prayer, make sure you're at the baptism, thing, and be a part of this community. Be a part of relationships. They have no connection whatsoever to this because their world wasn't about that. It was about the individual, period. I'm the only one that counts. And I need that because if I don't take it, someone else will. It's completely all about me. So Yaakov is using this example to demonstrate that if your faith does not translate into this type of action, chesed, then it is not a saving faith at all. All right, 2:17. Are we on time? 4 o'clock. Okay, so in the same way, faith by itself is not accompanied by action, is dead. So the question is, in the same way as what? Let's start it out. In the same way, faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. In the same way as what? What does in the same way mean? What is the in the same way referring to?
That which was previously.
So he's referring back to the example, right? So notice that Yaakov does not say faith without works is ineffective. He doesn't say it's useless. He doesn't say it's diminished. What does he say it is? Dead. Period. Dead. Worthless. Useless. Bunch of ashes in a jar.
Yeah.
Right?
New Living says useless.
It's dead. Cross it out. There's no discussion needed on dead. Dead's dead.
Well, maybe that
Right?
means burning for eternity.
Yeah.
It's not
So-
final.
Is this the view of the faith commonly held in the church today? No, definitely not. Sola fide. We only need faith and no works, right? We believe faith is something we possess, something I got stamped on my passport. I've been baptized, don't you know? Right. I've signed a membership agreement at the church. I'm a member in good standing. Well, I have a membership agreement at the gym, and it doesn't mean I'm in good shape.
Ah,
working on it.
Been
But
there.
guy looked at me and he says, "Hey, you're fat." I said, "Well, you're ugly. At least there's something I can do about me."
Yeah.
So, just kidding.
Uh,
Yakov says that says a faith that says be warmed and filled. It's the example he gave, right? A faith like that and depart from me does not equal faith at all. So this actually has to do with the understanding, this is a point Skip makes, an understanding about the idea of existence. So this verse is based on a Hebraic assumption of existence and the difference between a static and an active paradigm. This is one of those things where you go, oh God, he's going to give me a headache now. He's going to use words I don't want to know. So faith without works is dead. What does that tell me about the Hebraic idea of existence? It is verb-based.
Well, that's what I meant.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're not doing something, you're dead. This is like the Sesame Street level teaching, but for Greeks. Okay. So do you remember in Sesame Street, a lie is something that breathes, eats, and grows. You guys didn't watch Sesame Street?
I'm
Well,
too
they
old. They didn't have
raised
Sesame.
on Sesame Street.
I didn't have kids, and I'm too old, and
No,
they didn't
this
have
was the
Sesame
old
Street.
said they didn't have that.
Okay.
Yeah, they
So
Oh,
if
good
faith
catch.
does not show itself in a relationship of reciprocity and transitivity and action, it's not faith. That's as simple as he can make it.
See, the problem is definition of terms again.
Yes.
Because faith to the current mindset is one thing, as sin does not have a definition in the current mindset. It could be anything from drinking alcohol to putting
Whatever you want
toenail
it to be.
polish on your toes.
Yeah,
I mean,
whatever
it
you want it to be.
there were,
Or
The
in
church
our
now-
congregation, I had too many cookies.
Yeah.
Right?
yes.
Okay.
And the problem was the definition really is right here.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't want to pay any attention to it.
Or they never looked past the English version, which, because of our culture, did just get short circuits the pea brain, and you straight out do not understand it. And no,
Mhm.
there's very, very few people that want to take the time or the effort to look underneath and see what it really means.
So that's a good point. So before I went down this whole road, there were two things that Gary was getting our congregation to do. This is like, before I die, this congregation will do these two things. You will read your Bible every day, and you will pray every day. That's what preceded my whole journey. But then I was reading the Bible every day, and I was praying every day, and I discovered, oh, we're
Not
doing
what
a
they
lot
were
of things
telling-
wrong.
What they were
Right?
telling
Yeah, it's you just there's a disconnect. So again, I think this is what when you start out on Skip stuff, he starts you out with it's 30 days of today's word email, and so for 30 days you get a different Hebrew word, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to discover some of those words don't mean what you think they mean.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So again, you know, as a teacher, what I do is I share those words with people, right? I don't even realize that I'm doing it, but I'm sitting at Washburn Cafe, someone walks in, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm studying this word. It means kind of this thing, you know, and this is really fascinating. Everybody goes, wow, that's really fascinating. And they don't realize they actually took a step closer to God, but it was so mild that it wasn't offensive to them, right? It's being done in humility.
It wasn't a challenge.
They didn't feel challenged by it, right? So you know, it's like so I had this guy Larry. We've met several times. We probably met like half a dozen times, and he emails me. And he's like, "Hey, I'd really like to meet again." And we sit down, and I have no idea what he wants to talk about. He just feels like God's calling him, and maybe he's calling him in this direction. I don't know. So he had been at the Passover Project with us, and he had seen my post that I've been doing about Yaakov, lunch with Yaakov, breakfast with Yaakov, coffee with Yaakov. And I'm just taking all of our Sabbath things and I'm just turning them into little posts and stuff. And it's like me and Yaakov sitting at lunch having a conversation about this. So Yaakov says something, I say something back, we make a joke, things like this. And then Yaakov, has to go and head off to yoga class type thing. And he's been reading these and he's just like, every time you say something, I just feel drawn closer and closer to God. Now, I don't know what this is going to, turn out like or anything like that, but I enjoy having a cup of coffee and talking about my God. And so whatever he brings up becomes the discussion that day. And so it became a discussion of Easter and Passover. And how do you know which day he rose on and stuff like that? And so, I ripped down some poster on the wall because I needed a sheet of paper, and we make our calendar and we start teaching them how to do the lunar calendar. Did you know the calendar in the Bible is different than our calendar? No. You want to see it? Sure. Right. So we start working on the calendar, and so you got to figure out when the new moon is. So, you got to look up in the sky and see the sliver of the moon. And if it's the beginning of the year, you got to see the barley too. And so, yeah. So, we spent 3 hours sitting there working through kind of the resurrection. I said, why do you think they call him the Lord of the Sabbath? He was raised on the Sabbath. That's the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord never meant Sunday when John wrote that. No one celebrated Sunday until like the 300s. And the church admits they're the one that changed it. Really? Again, you can still go down to Willamette Christians, fine with me, do whatever you're going to do. I have no judgments against this, right? I'm just glad you're asking me questions. Toodles off. He'll call back in another week or two. He'll have another topic, and we'll talk about that. I'm just going to surround this guy with so many facts on the ground that eventually he will show up, right? That's Sesame Street faith. Who knew those puppets were going to be Jewish? Okay, so who packs your parachute if you're a parachutist? You do, right? So why are all these people letting their pastors pack their parachutes? That's a scary thought, okay? You can't use someone else's faith chute. It's your faith. It's your walk, right? Your faith must be so reliable that you trust your life to it. The opposite of that is Lavan. Does Lavan, you guys remember Laban, right? Does Lavan worship Yehovah?
Wouldn't think so. How he acted.
Okay, I get that.
So,
So
But he's Abraham's.
he is. So he has some experience of worshiping him, right?
Yeah.
But what else does he worship?
The other guy.
He has idols, right? Yeah.
There's lots
Okay.
of them.
He's got spares in case it doesn't
cover
work.
all bases.
You got to cover all your bases. That's right. Okay. So he doesn't have full trust in the Father, right? This is the same story with Shaul at the Areopagus. I feel like I'm saying Snuffleupagus. Yeah, Snuffleupagus. Yes, that place. And they're walking through there, and he sees all these statues to all the different gods, and then he comes across one to who? The unknown God. Well, what are they doing? They're just covering their bases, right? In case there's one that we don't know about, we'll make this idol for him, right? Because who knows? He could be attacking us tomorrow and punishing us for something we don't know about.
Acknowledge him will be mad, so let's just.
Right, right. Okay, so Yaakov's idea is that you put all your eggs in one basket and you put your trust in one parachute, period. So if you don't have works, evidence of chesed in your life, you could just say, well, yeah, but, I serve Artemis, so I go to the temple of Diana all the time. I'm good. I just, I'll go and visit your God too. right? And that's okay. And you can come and visit my God. We'll just have a big happy party everywhere.
But if they don't see a statue of him, then who is he?
He's the unknown God, right? So if you do not follow this standard, is Jacob's point, the standard of works, chesed, okay, then you're as good as dead. Again, scary thoughts by James today, right? So Hesed, works of Hesed, through faith, combined with faith, is essential to our walk. Rich and the fam were down in
Wuhan?
not Wuhan. San Diego a couple years ago, right? And you came back and you had bought me a shirt. Do you remember?
Oh,
The sloth shirt, yeah. Do you remember we were at your house, and I sink below the table and I broke your chair and stuff, and it was this slow motion thing going. And
Wasn't that? You were fascinated with Utopia.
I loved Zootopia at the time and stuff. And so they bring me back this shirt. And so they do an act of kindness for me. I didn't require a shirt. It's not, like everybody needs to get me a shirt or something. But it was just kind of like, they were. So I know that they were thinking of me. They're on their vacation when they're supposed to be thinking about other things, and they thought about me. And that makes me really happy then, right? And so every once in a while I pull out my sloth shirt and I think, oh, that's really happy, right? And I think, oh, Rich and Amy, okay? That's part of this whole thing. We just do things for each other because of the relationship that we're in with the Father. We just pay that love forward. God has done so much for me that I just pay it forward to those around me. I never thought I'd get another bottle of rum, right? But here you're off in Thailand and you got me a bottle of rum. And I'm like, that's really special. That's great. Thank you, right? Did she have to do that for me? No. If she went to Thailand and came back and didn't get me a bottle of rum, would I have ever thought about it? No.
No, but now
Right?
every time she goes somewhere.
Now when she goes somewhere, if she doesn't bring me back something, right?
You just don't want to go. That's why I never bring anything back. Yeah. That's why we don't
So,
bring anything.
This idea of Hesed is critical to our understanding of faith. That we have to learn to develop this in our lifestyle as a sign of our faith, right? That's James' point. And that is huge compared to what we see today. It's not,
Obedience is the same.
yeah.
Because
Well,
it's
it's-
loyal deed. You said loyal deed. I just was looking back on the notes and it says loyal deed. For us to do what God said to do is that.
So again, it's because of, so part of that covenant is do this stuff, right? There are these commandments that you'll need to do, right? And so as we do those things, so our understanding of faith today is this very general sense of belief, okay?
Mental assent.
It's a mental assent, correct, okay? I think that faith is when you believe a commandment and you start to do it. And as soon as you engage God in that commandment through obedience, you've given him opportunity to partner with you on whatever issues going on in your life. Okay, so for me, when I don CTO,
Yeah, you're like,
did I put them on?
I know, I almost forgot mine this
Yeah.
morning. I'm like, oh.
Changed pants. When I donned CTO, the number one issue facing my life at the time was lust, and I dealt with it because of early exposure to pornography in my life and things like that. I could never get rid of all of these images in my life and stuff. And to the day that I put these on, that was ripped out of my mind. Why would I not want to put them on again? Right? Now, I'm not saying that this is a talisman and that every guy puts this on that gets fixed in his life. What happened is that I said, I will be obedient to you. Show me a commandment to be obedient with. He knew what my struggle was in life. And he says, if you take a step into faith, I will meet you there and deal with what you're dealing with you, right? Because for years I'd prayed, teach me to make a covenant with my eyes that I wouldn't sin against you, just like Job prayed. And it never worked. Why I kept praying, I have no idea. Because nothing ever happened, right? So you just have to deal with all this stuff. But then and I would go to the gym at 3:30 in the morning to work out to avoid all the women showing up there. Because I'd be up on the treadmill walking, reading, and I'm like, crap, I did it again. I'm staring and I shouldn't be. I'm reading the Bible and I'm looking at women. What's going on? And the next day, that never happened again. So why would I take them off? Right? That's just part of my walk of faith. And then, this is the scary part about me. I went, well, if that works, what else is available to me? And then I cannonballed at that time, right?
Then I
Okay.
need to put the other three
But,
on.
yeah.
Boy, this one works so darn good.
So to me, faith is walking into the commandments. It's obeying those commandments. That's faith, right?
The evidence that you have faith.
Yes. Yeah.
If I believe X is true about God, I'm going to act a certain way.
Yeah.
Correct.
If I'm acting this way, I probably don't believe this way.
Correct. So then as we talked about in chapter 1, beginning chapter 2, so he's talking about all these trials, and he says that you have to do this with steadfastness or patience or endurance. Lots of different words that translations use. And the idea in a Hebrew mindset is expectant anticipation. So as I'm walking through my day, I believe that God provided this trial. I believe God is my biggest cheerleader. I believe that he thinks I can survive the trial, even if I don't think that. He thinks my shoulders are big enough to bear it. And given that, Paul says that he will always provide a way of escape. Okay. Now, the way of escape isn't, oh God, take the trial from me. Okay. The way of escape is succeeding at the trial. It's winning. Okay. It's passing the test, right? Given all of that, I have the right to assume with expectant anticipation, God could show up at any moment. That's what Paul goes into jail with. He goes into jail and he's like, let's sing. Toho dule Adonai ki tov. God is great. He's going to be here any minute. What's going to happen? I'm waiting for him. In walks the jailer, right? Whole family saved. Paul has this everywhere, shipwrecked, beaten, all these things. God's going to show up in this. I just know it. I don't understand it because I don't have, James goes into this, I don't have the wisdom to understand it yet. God, give me the wisdom to understand what's going here. So you're hiking up a mountain, right? And you can see the tip of the mountain. So, and there's the summit way up there. So you start hiking. And then all of a sudden you get to what we call the false summit. And you go, oh crap, there's still 3 more miles, right? And so then the path takes you on this circuitous route. And you're thinking, I'm not getting anywhere near where I'm supposed to be going because I can see the tip over there, right? And then you get to the top and you look down and you go, oh, there was a giant chasm there. I couldn't see the giant chasm from where I was at. All Yaakov is telling us is you're on that path and you're walking along and God knows what's there. You don't know what there is there because you don't have the wisdom to see it from your perspective, right? So he's going to take you, and so all of a sudden here comes this trial. What the trial does is it forces you over here. and you deal with this while you're walking along. And then another trial over here, another trial, and they get you right to the top where he wanted you the whole time. But the attitude of the walk, of that hike, is God's going to show up at any time. I know that he could show up, and we think, oh, he's sending me over here and it's the wrong direction. You're doing
And
the,
now we're mad.
and now we're
Now
mad
we
because
start
God's
yelling.
sending me the wrong direction. When he's doing it, you're exactly where he wants you on that path at any given moment.
Yeah, we
Right?
start ragging and-
Yeah, we rag on God, we rag on everybody else, blah, 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 right? So we're supposed to be walking with this expectant anticipation that at any minute God is going to show up. So for the last 4 months, 5 months, this is like the whole Bahamas thing. I'm walking through my trip in the Bahamas and I'm thinking, God's going to show up today. I have no idea what it's going to be, but it's going to be exciting. And then all these crazy things would happen, right? Because I'm looking for him in the midst of whatever it was. So my week this week, I'm watching, Judah's got a job and he's, all responsible now and he's just about ready to buy a car and all these things, and I remember the good days when he never wanted to leave home. And now he's all responsible, and now, he wants to spend time with his friends, so he doesn't come to Bible study anymore and things like this, and we're just meeting over at their house, hanging out and, sharing and stuff. And I'm like,
You're an empty nester.
I'm an empty nester. Yeah. Right.
Honey.
But,
I miss Judah on Friday nights.
bring
Aw.
up a child in the way he should.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have total faith in that, right? Yeah, okay. So, but Friday nights for the last 8 years was Taco Shabbat. I have no one to make tacos for now. Why would I make a taco for myself? It's easier to go downstairs and order a piece of pizza. I get a salad from Bartolotti's and have him make it, right? So, but this is weighing on my heart. Is it just this empty nester thing? Is Judah pulling away from me? Father, reveal this, right? So Judah comes over this morning.
Aw.
I make him breakfast. We're always making breakfast on Shabbat and stuff. And we're sitting down and we're chatting and stuff. And we have a great time together. We watch a couple funny TV shows. And he's getting ready to go. And he says, Dad, I've really been missing Friday evenings with you. Oh, really? Fascinating.
I say, oh,
It's
baby.
just the way it's just like, I'm having friends over. You're not welcome anymore. Yeah. But I've been like, in my head, I've been like, okay, so I need, do I need to do something to make him hungry for this again? Or, what role am I supposed to play? And I'm on this path
Maybe every Friday.
and I'm walking and I'm just like, I'm expecting God to show up. I don't know how he's going to show up. I don't know what the issue is. And then this morning he goes, hey, I've really been missing this. Can we start getting to, and it's just my schedule. It's only the schedule, Dad. So it's not me. That's good. It's not God. That's good. Right. Says, could we have dinners on Wednesdays now? Because I get off early on Wednesdays. Would that be okay with you? Well, yeah, okay, that'd be fine with me, right? Yeah. I think I could fit you in, right?
On Wednesday.
Yeah, so we'll have Wednesdays, Taco Wednesdays, right? Yeah. So, but again, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but what I'm really working hard on is this idea of expectant anticipation. God, whatever the trial is, God believes I'm going to make it through the trial. There is a way out. I can succeed at this trial. My job is to have expectant anticipation and pray for wisdom. Why are you doing this? Give me the understanding of what this is all about. Give me a strategic bird's eye view here, right? And then practice Hesed. Constantly be focusing on Chesed, building that into my life. That's my goal. That's, as I read the book of James now, that's what I'm getting out of this. And I'm trying to build that into my life. And it's like totally exciting. It's just like every day, new things are just kind of happening and stuff. And it's just like, oh, that's really fascinating. Oh, that's really interesting, right? So hopefully that helps you guys.
That was great today.
Thank
Yeah. Vern said he loved the discussion today. All right, Amy, you want to get us out of here?
Jimmy, do you want to give us?
Oh, passing the buck.
Master of the universe, we come before your throne in great delight, for it is so wonderful to come into your word and to learn something new and to discuss it among ourselves and to come away feeling filled and not empty. Father, we thank you so much for what you do for us day after day and Shabbat after Shabbat. Father, we bring before you also Nicole and her concern about her body. We ask for complete and total healing for this woman, this sister of ours, as we have asked continually for complete healing for Marcia.
Amen.
Father, you are so gracious and so kind to us, and we thank you very much. Father, we also thank you for the food that's been prepared. May it nourish us and strengthen us, bring health to our bodies and delight to our taste. Father, thank you that we are family and we are community. And Father, we thank you through Yeshua our Mashiach. Amen.
Amen.
I see why I always said I want you to do the communication.
All right, thanks to everybody for joining us today.
Marcia, where are you?
They hung up.
Oh,
So,
can I have
Yeah.
the keys? I want to.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Diego has some.
Go Tov.
Oh,
Bye.
and I
Utov.
would like to